Welcome to Toffee TV. I'm joined today by John Blain from the Everton Matters Everton Business Matters podcast from the Blue Room, and also chairman of the Everton Shareholders Association.
I am, yes.
Which you know, what's that? Is that just the title, or?
Well, there's, you know, you got to go back. Well, let's go back a year or so. Yeah. So, what did Mashiri buy? You know, he bought most of John Wood's and Arthur Abercrombie's and Robert Earl's shares, and obviously quite a few off Bill, and that gives him his nearly 50%. When he buys the rest of them, he'll have, I guess, nearly 70%. The rest is the so-called minority shareholders, and they're the people that the Shareholders Association, which is the oldest in the world, tries to represent. And you know, I'm a member. I apply for election to a committee, and there's about 12 people on that committee, and then that committee decides who the chairman is, who the treasurer is, who the secretary is, and so on. And that's me. Yeah.
And obviously, being in an organisation, it gives you a lot better say in how, or, you know, not a say, because obviously we're not stupid enough to think.
Yeah, I don't think we have a say, per se, but what we do have is it has that kudos of being the longest established shareholders association, and certainly when something really important needs to be addressed, most notably, I guess, in recent times, 3 or 4 years ago, when we fundamentally forced the football club into reinstating general meetings. When things are going fine, as they seem to be at the moment, everything's nice and quiet. But yeah, absolutely, we in theory get some access, and certainly I met with Farhad Mashiri last year with Bill Kenwright, and I guess if it hadn't been the Shareholders Association, that wouldn't have happened. So yeah. Okay.
Well, we'll leave Farhad Mashiri. That's going to be on another video on Patreon, so make sure you check that out. We're going to talk about Wayne Rooney, but not Wayne Rooney as such as, you know, the footballer, but the brand and what that means for Everton, because he's obviously been at the club now for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It feels like a bit of a whirlwind couple of weeks, and I think personally, because let's be honest, I'm a bit of a moaner, and I have been for a while. People say moaner, but I just like to think I'm a perfectionist. I've seen issues at the club, you've seen, and I've listened to the podcast, and when I listen to the podcast, I'm always nodding, thinking, yes, I'm glad 3 really intelligent men are saying things that
they start nodding as soon as we say let's get down to business, and keep doing it there on.
You know, but I'm glad that they're saying that you're saying the same things that I've been saying things for a while, and you know, we straight away you felt that Wayne Rooney's presence at the club meant things were happening straight away. There was an extra pressure on the club to get things right.
Pressure? In what way?
Well, I felt like there was a pressure straight away to make sure that straight away there was a press conference.
Yeah.
And that had obviously been forced upon them because of the amount of applications by the media to have interviews with Wayne Rooney. So there's an automatic pressure there on the club to change things that previously they would have done in house. And I'm starting to think that can the club keep up with those pressures? Not just media, but merchandising, communications, ticketing, and because these are the things that you talk about all the time. And obviously we all feel that in the past Everton haven't done so well, and this might be the thing. Wayne Rooney's the factor might be the thing that now pushes the club into those teams above us that seems to do that have that presence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether pressure's the right word, really, or even forced. Yeah? I'd like to think that as soon as the football club realised that it was going to get such a name, because you know, this guy is a worldwide brand in his own right, isn't he? You know, and the thought that we as a football club would think we're going to sign this guy and just show the little, little thing with the company secretary, you know, you sign a piece of paper and that's it. Just doesn't seem right, does it? Of course, but pressure's good. It's good pressure. Raising your game is needed, and I think in your question really was the most important bit. Demands from the media that we want to see this guy, we want to ask questions, we want to talk. So I think the days of the only time we ever see Everton doing stuff like that is on a Thursday, you know, before a Premier League weekend, are probably gone. I hope we exploit it, because it will knock on into improving the brand, getting some brand awareness, clearly selling more merchandise and so on. I think we talked on the last podcast, didn't we? You know, he's got his own collection, the Rooney collection. But you say you're a perfectionist. One of my colleagues, I think it was Roger, he said, but we're selling T-shirts with his name on the back. But that means people won't buy match shirts because they can buy a T-shirt instead. And so I think what we will have is subtlety like that, which you will call perfection, is making sure that we optimise everything. Yeah. You know, and if you look at the very disappointing things we've had recently with the streams for the pre-season games, we shouldn't even consider underestimating, you know, the interest going exponential, which is what it's done so far. Yeah. Well, and that heightens everybody's game, and undoubtedly some people will step forward and prove to be better than we thought they were within the club, and presumably some won't be up to the challenge. Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned merchandising there. I mean, the stuff they brought out for Rooney is not great. I'm not complaining. It's not great, but what it is there was an immediate effect, and they felt like they had to. I mean, one of the gripes, again, I'm a perfectionist, and this is just the way I am, is that they didn't have like his kit and his name and his number ready straight away. And I think the club have got to get better at things like that. And you know, because even though it was only 2 or 3 hours, it is making the most of that immediate impact, because it isn't going to last forever.
You're right, and providing merchandising. You talked about communication as well before, and I know it's a bit amusing that at the end of each of our podcasts we do the it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it, but that's really important. Yeah. And you know, the gestation of Wayne coming back to the club was quite long. I think it was like a best kept secret, wasn't it? Yeah. You know, and clearly you would hope that they anticipated that, they scheduled it, they did the timing. You know, the way we've done some of the other signings, it looks orchestrated, which is terrific, keeps us in the public eye. And then you do want to be able to say you can go down to the store tomorrow and you can get your Wayne Rooney shirt with all the Premier League badges and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, if you keep calling yourself a perfectionist, I just think that to me is 101. That's bog standard stuff that if you expect a spike in interest in your football club or your brand or your commercial, whatever it is, exploit it. And you know, those impulse purchases are just that. Yeah. That there would have been people who would have bought stuff who won't now. Yeah. And then that has a knock on to your shirt sponsor, a knock on to your shirt manufacturer, who think we didn't get full value for it. So
where do you think that'll go, the merchandising? Because there's been a lot of talk. I mean, the kit bag deal has not been perfect, let's be honest. It's had its ups and downs. I think when it first came in, we all appreciated that we could get a lot more items, and then it suddenly started sinking in when the feeling was, well, it's great that you can get items, but you can't get them where you want them necessarily. I think we missed the trick when we had the American players and Tim Cahill, that we never pushed into the American markets and Australia. But again, this deal for me just shows what we're not doing at the moment, and obviously there's about 2 years left on the kit bag deal.
2 years left.
Where do you think that'll go? Do you think they'll look to bring it in-house, or do you think they'll look to get a better deal that starts pushing that? Because I've been looking, I know you've been looking at Fanatics that have taken kit bag over, and I thought when Fanatics took over, I thought, yes, we're in for a push here in the States. There's been very little. I mean, I still find it weird that kit bag's still called kit bag here when it's supposed to be owned by this big company, you know, and they do have kits now, Fanatics, on their American website, but you can't personalise them, which I almost feels, it defeats almost the purpose, because...
Well, if you go to the kit bag site and see what you can get there, and there's almost 1,000 products or something. Okay, product might just be the shirt with a different name on it, but there's almost 1,000 products on there, and there's 50 odd on Fanatics. Now, I'm assured by the club that everything you can get on kit bag today, you'll be able to get on Fanatics. So it's when. I think the club thought that would have been done by now. I did check this morning in case you asked me, and I've been told they're still pushing Fanatics to make the whole of that catalogue available on the other.com. If that's the case, then this is a nothing conversation, because people who go to fanatics.com will see everything you can get from an Everton perspective. But how long will it take? That's a good question. It's the last couple of years. Your question is, are we going to take it back in-house? I hope not.
Yeah. Would that be wrong from a business point of view?
The S would say, and we could argue all night. Yeah, he's not here though. So I get to give you my view. To my mind, because I'm an outsourcing person by trade, if you're not getting full value out of an outsourcing arrangement, then you're either doing it wrong, or with the wrong partner. We don't need to own all these stores. We don't need to have huge warehouses of stock we're trying to shift at the end of the season. Okay, but what we should have is a better arrangement from a commercial perspective than we appear to have now. And we shouldn't forget that when that deal was struck 8 years ago, we were a completely different football club then. We were losing money. We had half a dozen retail stores. They were costing us money rather than making a profit, and it probably looked a good deal when we did it. And people shouldn't really take advantage of hindsight. However, that notwithstanding, I was astonished it was for 10 years.
Well, I was going to say that, yeah.
No one's psychic. No one's got second sight, yeah. So that was a long time. But I'm also surprised how long the sports pacer contract is as well. So, we're still perhaps being a bit cautious here and not being confident that when this thing comes up for renewal, we'll be in a far better place than we are today. So what I hope we're doing, and doing it already, is lining up replacements and giving Fanatics last shout, which is basically, this is what we want, this is how we want it to work. If you can satisfy our needs, you get the contract. Yeah. If you can't, we're going to go to somebody else. Yeah.
It's one of the problems of a deal like this, and because we don't get a tremendous lot of value out of it, it seems.
I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, let me just ask you the first question. Do the club feel like it's not their problem when people say, well, we can't get the shirt team, we can't get the shirt there, because of the feeling that, well, ultimately they've took as much out of the deal as they can?
Whenever I challenged the chief exec on how does this work, and you've got to understand commercial sensitivities and all that kick in, but it's a best kept secret. We get about £3 million a year. Now that's profit.
Yeah.
So you run any business and say, I'm going to make £3 million profit. How much turnover would you need to attract £3 million profit? And that's the amount of money that we're running ourselves. And that's what he tries to explain every time we have an AGM when he's doing the accounts. We count back in the outsourcing revenues and all those sorts of things. £3 million is quite a lot of money. If you go by how many shirts we sell, it's a huge amount of money. But of course, it's not just shirts; it's merchandising in the round. Is it enough? No. Why is it not enough? Because our brand's on the up, and that the market's changed anyway, on the back of the Premier League becoming more and more successful, and that's where I think we've been stymied a bit with that 10-year deal. So it needs to be a lot better than it is at the end of the day. Contracts, when I do them in my day job, or in the past when I've done them in my day job, the time it takes is 9 to 12 months. So we're not talking already to either Fanatics to try and make the deal more flexible for us and generate more income, or indeed to consult with potential competitors to them, then we've got some work to do because we're a bit behind it. And normal indications that you've dragged your feet a little bit when you extend things like this by a year or something, which just means you've timed out. So hopefully we'll see the world becoming a better place because we'll get more money. Because we have to.
And I've seen on the flip side as well of that. I mean, there are more stores getting the jerseys. Certainly in America, I've seen a few more places. But I've actually, I heard you listening. I was listening to the podcast and you were talking to New York, and it's up in 90, and it's actually.
Oh, is that the one that Paul was talking about?
But it's actually got like 6 stores in New York. It's a massive like football shop, and I've spoke to the owners before, and they've actually told me that the price they were getting asked to buy in just wasn't worth it. They could have bought it beforehand, but just the price. But you get the feeling now, because of Wayne Rooney, they feel there's value
because there's a premium.
Because I think they sell it at $90, whereas Fanatics are selling it for $75, which is about, I think it's about £57. So they're looking at $90 and thinking, well, with Wayne Rooney on the back, it's suddenly worth.
And where are they buying them from? From Umbro?
They're buying them from. I think they're still buying them from Kitbag or Fanatics. It's just that this is what I mean. I've done a bit of research in the past about this, and that was always the biggest problem. It wasn't that you couldn't get the shirt. It was just what Kitbag were asking for the shirt, and it wasn't worth keeping them in stock because it wasn't worth. The name wasn't big enough.
Well, that's an example then of perhaps how the deal's constructed, in the sense that presumably Umbro sell at wholesale prices to kitback fanatics. They then sell them for retail. If they're then selling them to other retailers, then they've already bedded in their retail profit, and then it's profit on profit. If you do it slightly differently and you license the imagery and so on, therefore someone's buying the license, which is the point Paul would make, and then you let anyone sell it who's prepared to pay the license.
Which is what the likes of
Man United,
but the likes of Sports Direct will do that. And if you go into a Sports Direct, you'll see Everton's crest on anything basically, and obviously.
Right,
but that leads me on to my next point, because obviously it's pre-season time. We're talking about exposure. We're talking about brand building. Do Everton have to get better at doing this? Now, this pre-season it's not really, you can't really talk about this pre-season because it's a very short one. It's all geared at the Europa League. But do we have to be better at going on these tours? Because I always felt, certainly under Moyes, we were very reluctant to get involved in those tours because it took away from the football. But we're seeing this week Tottenham, Man United, Liverpool over in Singapore, Arsenal being in China and Australia. Do we have to start committing ourselves to going to these countries? Certainly I think America, and I know our viewers know that I go on about it a lot, but I think that's where the market is. You know, we did a show a few weeks ago where we were talking about, it was about Romelu Lukaku being on the Chelsea pitch, but our first question was, why is there a Chelsea pitch in LA? Why isn't there an Everton pitch in LA somewhere? You know, these stores will start taking our shirts if we're a more visible brand, because those teams certainly above us at the moment are huge. I mean, I was in the States, you know, in June, and I seen those 6 teams above us in all different kinds of sports shops, whether it be in the night stores, whether it just be in general sports stores, whether it be in soccer stores. But I never seen Everton in any of them when I was there. But everyone above us was there. But they have always seemed to have a visibility in America.
Yeah, who knows? I just don't know why. 2 questions there, isn't there? We'll talk about the pre-season stuff in a moment. I just don't know why we don't have the presence. And I have to believe it's because we don't push it hard enough. I just have to. You know, I can understand Manchester United, worldwide brand, blah blah blah. Yeah, maybe even that other shower, from across the way, for historical reasons. Man City, new, they've won the Premier League. Tottenham, okay, what have they got going for them that we haven't, other than they're based in London? And so if they have higher profile than we, and I guess your suggestion from a recent holiday that it's much higher, then we're not doing it properly, are we? And that requires investment and time and effort and so on, you know. And we do lots of great community work, and again, we talked about this on the podcast, didn't we, about, you know, the Tanzania thing, you know, it was almost an Everton in the community type thing rather than an Everton Football Club thing. And we do have to be a bit brash, I guess, and a bit bold and a bit commercial, and say to the manager, I guess, we're going here because it generates lots of money. You talk about Moyes. I mean, the ICC, when it was in the States, you know, in Martinez's first season, Moyes organised that.
With his brother,
But that was because someone dropped out.
It was it was Galatasaray.
That's right. So someone drops out, all port in a storm. And I was actually in Bill's office talking to Bill when the call come through, and Bill said, go for it, you know, sort of thing. And we did great on that tour, because when we're there on the pitch, if you like, we do great stuff. You know, everybody in Miami and what have you, because I was East Coast side, they knew we were there. They knew. So we just need to be proactive. We really, really do. And we should be looking at which markets do we think are going to be those markets, particularly if we listen to Scudamore at Premier League and stuff like that, because the income's going to come for the Premier League from foreign TV rights as much as the UK or England, and just target those places, try and get ahead of the curve, you know. But the States are so huge, there's plenty to go around. If Africa is going to be huge, then hit Africa. Far East sounds like it's tied up by others, but Far East also comes with it. This is where you get back to, is this the most appropriate brand on the front? You know, a betting company that's quite small and things like that. So you've got to look at the markets. It becomes circular. You do the right things, your brand increases in awareness, therefore, and so on, and you spiral up. I think Tottenham perhaps just riding on the coattails of that at the moment, because Sky keeps talking about the top 6. When they're talking about the top 7, then that'll help as well. But we just need to do more.
Do we need to? I mean, because a lot of teams now are going not only pre-season but post-season tours. Is it about visibility? Because I think it is about visibility. I think certainly in America, we've already got loads of fans in America, and they'll go and come and. But some clubs have got, obviously the likes of Liverpool and stuff, they'll go to a city and, you know, or even if it's just a little small thing, you know, they take some ex-players over, fans will turn up in mass. I think we need as a club to go somewhere so all our fans can turn up in mass, because we seem to have a lot, but they're all dotted around the whole country. And for me, I'd like to see Everton every summer, or certainly every other summer, go to America at least once, take the ladies team, take the under-23s team, take Everton in the community, and really hit a city for a week and make a huge deal out of it, and get the commercial aspect, but the community aspect, the ladies team and the youngsters, obviously, and make a big thing of it, so everyone has to hone in on it for a week, and we're not just there when it's not just a quick in and out, you know, coaching sessions, and really. And certainly if it's in one of these cities as well that are a big football city, say Seattle, which is a huge football city, some of that...
You've got an obsession with Seattle.
I've never even been to Seattle.
It's in the back of beyond, man.
I know. It doesn't matter though, it's a big football city.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one of the, or, you know, or Kansas, or one of these real football hotbeds.
Blitz it
for a week. Get all the coverage out of it. You know, get people like Wayne Rooney, get other top players, you know, doing a little bit of coaching, even if it's just for the TV, and really have a go so that people start to see and leave a legacy as well. You know, leave a pitch like Chelsea left the pitch in LA. Leave something behind so that people go there and go, oh, we'll lose that, you know. And I mean, personally, that's what I'd love to see. I don't understand why that hasn't happened.
Well, what I'd like to think, and you know, again, if you've been listening to the podcast, we keep banging on about Chief Engagement Officer.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's not a communications guy. That's not a guy who just talks to the media. That's a guy who lives and breathes the brand. Yeah. He'd be the one doing what you just did.
I could do this. Honestly, I'll put myself forward.
But he'd do that at board level. We've got to do this, you know? Because I'd like to think that, I mean, clearly, Shiri doesn't sit at board. He's not even a member of the board. Jim White, yeah. I've said on the pod he doesn't qualify yet. You know, he's not born, not manufactured blue, is he? Yeah. So, but yeah, that person who has that passion to say we can do this. Now, part of the answer to your question is why aren't we in the Far East doing these little mini tournaments? Because we don't get invited. Yeah. Why don't we get invited? Because we don't have the profile. Why don't we have the profile? Because we don't do stuff. So let's force people to recognise this brand. It's a bit cheesy or a bit too commercialised, it brand, but fundamentally people have to want to see Everton. Now at the moment this guy will make people want to see us just because of who he is. Now he's got 15 million followers on Twitter. He puts something on Twitter, 15 million people see it. Everton puts something on Twitter, 1 million people see it. That's
1.2 now.
Oh, it's going up all the time. 20% increase because we signed Wayne Rooney probably. So that is something we really, really need to exploit. And you only get one crack at this, you know. And Mashiri said it, and people keep repeating it. And the reason they keep repeating it is because he was right. We have a small window of opportunity, yeah. And you know, that was in January. It's now what, July? 7 months later. I'd love to believe that there's people in rooms having meetings, planning to make sure that we exploit all the opportunities in front of us. But then the little thing on the shoulder goes, yeah, but if that was happening, we wouldn't have messed the streams up. Yeah?
Well, that's what I was going to say, and this will come to me my last point, I suppose. They've done okay since Rooney. I don't think they've done brilliantly. They've done well at some things like, and these are silly things.
I think the reveals were great.
The reveals have been great, but things like when he scored goals, right? They've got the videos out there straight away on YouTube. They're not very good on YouTube, honestly. Believe me, they're not very good. They don't use YouTube at all. I don't understand why they don't use. They love Facebook, Everton, and they use it really well. But because they haven't got good numbers on YouTube, they don't use it. Which again, to me, is silly. If you haven't got good numbers on it, then try and get good numbers. Sure. Listen, we haven't got great numbers, but we keep trying, you know.
There's guys out there who can tell you how to get great numbers.
Exactly, and we get told all the time, and our numbers keep growing. But they've been getting the videos out there, so that they've been getting pushed around social networks, left, right and centre. All these big accounts then start using that video because it's the proper video. It gets banged around, and people keep seeing the kit, they keep seeing the sponsor, they keep seeing who makes the kit. It all helps. So from that point of view, I think they've done well. But like you said, the streams, and I listened to the podcast, for 3 games, for all 3, for anybody to have any kind of trouble, that's not good enough. And you've made a really good point saying, have they underestimated?
I think that's exactly what they did. They must have done. I've had a private, DM conversation with a guy who knows this stuff, and he said to me that the service provider who provides a Ripple Effect or whatever they're called,
by Trinity,
but they provide the same service to Man United for 10 times the volume. So they clearly have the technical competence to allow 30,000 of us all to turn up 5 minutes before kick-off and get through. But like anyone knows, if you buy a service, they say, right, Sky Sports, what channels do you want? You can't say, I want these 3 channels, then complain you don't get the 4th one. So we must have given them an indication of what to expect. And yet we fired out an email, in the afternoon to presumably I got one, to every single season ticket holder saying, don't forget, you can watch this game. So we tried. That's a lesson learned, and I'm sure there's been some harsh conversations about it, but we can't allow that to become the norm, and therefore in my day job we do what will be a measured overreaction, which means if we think 50,000 are going to turn up, size it for 100. Because you can't afford to have that tripping over yourself. And don't run out of shirts. Have them available. Programs, whatever, it's all got to be there. And going back to your Seattle question, that Leicester and Liverpool and Tottenham and all those guys, City, they will all have been paid to go to those tournaments.
Of course.
Maybe we have to pay first. And if we're going to pay, let's totally blitz our brand. And once we've got a presence, then they'll come to us. So it's like the joke, isn't it? For the stadium on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, build it and they will come. We have all these debates about whether it should be 50 or it'll be full. Don't underestimate this brand. Just don't underestimate it. The potential is pretty much unlimited because we're coming from a low base, and now we've got momentum. Let's just maintain it.
Start puffing our chest out. And we say this all the time. We don't do it enough. Just puff your chest out and start telling people you're here. Because there's been other things that we'll talk about on our conversation with Fahad Mashiri. Make sure to check that out. If you haven't listened already, John does the podcast Everton Business Matters with the Esk and Roger. It's very, very good. If anyone wants to delve into the business side of Everton, it's absolutely perfect just to listen to John and the Esk have little arguments.
We don't always agree.
No, not always, but shouldn't have to. Thanks for watching Toffee TV. We will see you later.